Right, well, I'm joined now by Stephen Barrett, who's a barrister and a writer at The Spectator. Stephen, thank you very much for joining me. So we've been discussing this whole banking situation. People are saying, Rachel Reeves said that actually it was a sort of witch hunt because she was a female, basically. Alison Rose Going.
Well, I don't like to do politics or talk about politicians. They're entitled to their personal political views and to believe whatever it is that they want to believe. The important thing, I think, for your viewers is that they are seeing law operating properly. And that is the beginning of this story, which is nearly a month old. I mean, one of the things about we forget just how long ago it was when it started, and everybody initially piles in with their glee, quite possibly because they don't like Mr. Farage. Quite possibly that was their motivation for getting very excited at the start. But the simple fact is that law matters. Whether you like Mr. Farage or dislike Mr. Farage, law matters. And what is happening now, we've seen quite rightly that the ICO, that's one regulator, is very likely to get involved, and the FCA, which is the financial services regulator, is likely to get involved. Now, those are very respected regulatory bodies. They move a bit slower than the news cycle, and that's perfectly fine. Law is a lot slower than politics. But it is about time that the law got involved in all of this, and there are many issues to be looked at.
Well, and as you say, law working correctly, which is a good thing. But the worry behind this is the actual, what it felt like that we're moving towards a kind of social credit system where organisations like banks seem to have some sort of EDI criteria. And if you fall outside it or fall outside what they deem acceptable, then you find yourself in all sorts of problems.
Well, this is, so I'm not just going to sit here and praise law. Law has got itself into a bad way. It's become flabby. It's become fat. It's become very difficult to understand what the rules actually are on quite a number of topics. And law works well when it has clarity. So, I'm sure in this instance, clarity is about to assert itself and we will come to a clear conclusion and that everything will be looked at with proper due process. And I'm not too worried about this event. But it's not dissimilar from when one of the BBC presenters made very political statements, and that threw the BBC into chaos because that's contra to what we call BBC impartiality. And very honestly, the head of ethics at the BBC went on Radio 4 and said, well, the problem is I don't know what the rule is. And that is repeating itself throughout our society. We don't seem to know what the rules are. Now, that's a legal failure. So I have to sort of put my hand up for law and go, we've not done terribly well here, because if you don't know what the rule is, if there is no clarity, then we are failing all of you. And if Coutts got itself into the point where it had a committee looking at its own customers and reviewing their politics, and if Coutts got itself into a position where its CEO was saying things to journalists, if all of this has occurred, then quite obviously that needs fixing, and that's an issue that the law itself must eventually address. We must just simply have clear rules which apply to everybody. Doesn't matter whether they're Mr. Farage, doesn't matter whether they're Sir Keir Starmer, doesn't matter who they are. Clear rules that apply fairly and equally to everybody. And we will get here. But yes, it probably is right to stick our hands up and say, well, things are not in the best place that they've ever been. There's a lot of, probably the reason that I'm repeatedly on the media is because things are not in the best state they've ever been. And I often think I have a lot in common with non-lawyers. And I just, if you will allow me, I'll just explain that very simply. If you know nothing about law, you nonetheless will have a sort of gut instinct that, that doesn't seem right. And then you know a sort of bit about law, and you can be sucked into our own hype, I suppose, the own certainty of law. You need to get to a certain level of experience in law before you start saying, hang on a second, that's just bad law. We have a lot of unclear law.
But a lot of that didn't sit right with most people, which is a good thing, and hopefully something good will come out of it. Stephen, thank you very much. That's Stephen Barrett. He's a barrister and a writer at The Spectator.